Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome from wherever you are and whenever you are. So I see we have people from Florida and Colombia and the UK and Spain, Costa Rica, Germany. We have people from Malaysia. Malaysia, I think it is 3 a.m. in your neck of the woods. Vietnam, 2 a.m. Hong Kong, New York, all right, you're in the middle of the day. Italy, amazing. Welcome, everyone. It's so good to see you here. Um, we have an exciting hour ahead of us. What we're going to do is the following. I'm going to begin by introducing our guest. Then I'm going to have a brief conversation, 20, 30 minutes maybe. And then we open it up for your questions. When you have a question, what you can do is go down to reactions, and put your hand up. And when you put your hand up, we'll call on you. Before I start, we have a translation. So if you prefer to listen to this in Spanish, you can do so by going down to interpretation and clicking on Spanish. Or if you prefer in Vietnamese, we've also got translation into Vietnamese. What is the Happiness Studies Academy? For those of you, I see many familiar faces, but some of you are new to the Happiness Studies Academy. Well, we have a very simple mission statement. We want to spread happiness, make it accessible to as many people as possible. How do we do it? We do it through our year-long certificate program. We have a master's degree in happiness studies, the first of its kind in the world. And soon we'll have the world's first PhD in happiness studies. So we are creating a field of study dedicated to the good life, where our students join first to help themselves become happier, and second, to help others do the same. And towards that end, we have guests. And our guest today is very special. Someone who's affected the lives of millions. I'm one of those millions. And his name is Jim Kwik. He's a widely recognized world expert in brain performance, mental fitness, and memory improvement. Jim had a childhood brain injury and left him with learning challenges. And then he created strategies to enhance his cognitive performance. He didn't leave it there, though. He took the things that he learned, expanded them towards helping others, unleashing the true genius and brain power of others. He's the founder of Kwik Learning, which is the premier online accelerated learning academy with students in basically all countries around the world, 195 of them. His clients include, among many, Google, Virgin, Nike, the US Air Force, Harvard, and Singularity University. He's also the author of the book Limitless, which is about upgrading your brain, learning anything faster, and unlocking your exceptional life. He's the host of the acclaimed Kwik Brain podcast that has tens of millions of downloads. Some of them are mine. I'm a big fan of his podcast and his work in general. His mission, no brain left behind. What an honor, Jim, to have you with us today.
I've been looking forward to this so much. Thank you, my friend. This is a plug, but it's not. I just gifted 8 copies to friends and clients of your book, and thank you for being on our podcast. It's so good to see everybody here. I am a speed reader because we teach people how to read faster and improve their memory. So anything in the chat, I will see. So thank you for everyone for tuning in.
Thank you, Jim, for being here with us. So what I'm going to do, I have no more than 200 questions for you.
Let's do it.
And then after we're done, we'll open it up. Now, in about 20, 30 minutes, we'll open it up. And I'm sure our audience, whether from the Happiness Studies Academy community or outside, have plenty of questions for you. So here's where I want to start. You know, Jim, you often talk about the power of mindset in shaping our experience, how the internal affects the external. So can you share how cultivating a positive mindset can directly impact our sense of happiness and well-being?
Yeah, I'd love to turn this into a little master class. So I encourage everyone to take some notes. I'd like to talk about the science and also some practical things we all could do right away. So, I mean, this is one of the questions that is one of the most transformative aspects of personal growth, cultivating a positive mindset. It's hard to create a positive life with a negative mind. And it's not just about looking for me on the bright side. It's about, wiring our nervous system, our brain to naturally gravitate towards solutions, towards resilience, towards joy. At events, people see me do these demonstrations, and you and I've had the honor of sharing the stage with you. If there's time, I'll pass around a microphone in an audience and I'll have people introduce themselves, like maybe 50, 60, upwards of 100 people, and I'll memorize all their names, or we'll do something like that. And I always tell people I don't do this to impress you. I do this to express to you what's possible, because the truth is each and
Mm,
every one of you, you could do that too. You might not think so, which is going back to mindset, but it's absolutely true. And I know it's possible because I grew up with severe learning challenges. When I was 5 years old, I had an accident. I had a traumatic brain injury, rushed to the hospital. But after that, I had poor focus, poor memory, and I'll get to the answer to your question in a moment. I would have these migraines every single day,
mm,
which didn't really make me that happy. Coordination issues. It took me 3.5 years just to learn how to read like the other children. And it was hard. I had a lot of self-confidence issues, a lot of self-esteem issues, a lot of
mm,
doubt. I remember when I was 9 years old, I was slowing down the class, and I was being teased because I just didn't understand the lessons, and the teacher would have to repeat herself, and they made, a lot of kids made fun of me, and the teacher came to my defense, so I was very grateful. But she pointed to me in front of the whole class and said, "Leave that kid alone. That's the boy with the broken brain."
oh,
And you could say that label became my limit. So every single time I did badly in school or wasn't picked for sports, which was like every day, I would always say, "Oh, because I have the broken brain." And that was my mindset. And so going back to your question, I think mindset are the set of assumptions and attitudes we have about something. Like, what are your attitudes, assumptions about uh, money? Like everyone wants to get to the methodology. What do I do? But let's say you want to make money and that will make you happy. But if your mindset is money is the root of all evil, I have to hurt people to make money, money doesn't grow on trees, we're not going to use those methods, right? We're going to self-sabotage or take one step forward, two steps back. At these same events, people invariably they'll pull me aside and say, "Jim, I'm so glad you're here. As a memory coach, they'll say something like, I have a horrible memory, or I'm just too old."
mm,
And I always say the same
mm,
thing. I always say, stop. If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. If you fight for your limits, they're yours. Your brain is this incredible supercomputer, and your self-talk, guess what? It's the program it will run. So if you tell yourself, I'm not good at being happy, or I'm not good at remembering names, you won't remember the name of the next person you meet because you program your supercomputer not to. And so being aware of that self-talk, we could talk about how to change those negative beliefs, negative mindset, but awareness is the key to making any kind of change. And I would say that even if you check yourself and say, like, I don't have a great memory, or I haven't figured out how to be happy, even just adding a little word like yet at the end. I don't have a great
mhm,
memory yet. Or I haven't figured out how to be happy yet. It just opens up more possibility and potential. But the science goes back to neuroplasticity. I'm sure everybody here is familiar with the idea that our brains are capable of changing and forming new connections throughout our lives. It's a concept called neuroplasticity, that with novelty and proper nutrition, you can rewire your brain just like a muscle. If you want to grow your muscles, you give it novelty, some kind of exercise or stimulus, and then you give it the proper nutrition to grow. And when you consistently practice, uh, let's say it's positive thinking, you want to be more optimistic, you strengthen those neural pathways that support optimism and emotional resilience. And this means that over time, your brain becomes better at automatically generating. Duke University says that about 40% of our 40% of our behaviors are habitual, but when did we actually sit down and design those habits? And I think part of being happy it's a habit. Happiness is a habit, and it's first we create our habits, then our habits create us back. You create your habits of meditation or exercise or eating right or sleep, and then those habits create us back. So neuroplasticity, it plays a part in rewiring our brain. Also, if you're looking at the science of stress, right, chronic stress has been shown to shrink the human brain. And so reducing stress not only makes your brain function, better, but also it can increase your happiness. A positive mindset helps to regulate your brain's stress response. And by focusing on gratitude or possibility or
Mm.
self-compassion, you can lower your cortisol levels, all the adrenaline that stimulate the production of uh, serotonin and dopamine. These neurotransmitters are associated with happiness, with motivation. And so we're not so much logical, but we are very biological, right? And these biochemical boosts not only enhance your mood, but also reinforces a cycle of more empowering thinking and well-being. I also feel like, being aware of your mindset. When I'm talking about the brain, I want to remind everyone here that you are not the passenger of your mind, but you are the pilot. And a more empowering mindset shifts your perspective from seeing setbacks as failures to viewing them as opportunities for growth. I really don't think a lot of people they limit their performance or their potential because they're afraid of what other people will think. And and I totally get that. Other people's opinions, their expectations, so many people shrink what's possible to fit the current situation out of fear. What if we didn't shrink our dreams and to fit our minds, but what if we expanded our minds to fit more that's really possible? And so, not that you have a negative thought and it ruins your life any more than eating one donut will ruin your life. But if you ate that donut 30 times a day, every single day, I think we'll all agree there'll be some kind of consequence. But I think also being concerned about your mindset and helps with resilience, right? Having an empowering mindset, it could cultivate emotional resilience, which is your brain's ability to bounce back from challenges that maybe you realize that failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of it, right? It's
Mm.
part of success. And research shows that those with more of a growth mindset are more likely to achieve those goals and maintain a sense of happiness and fulfillment. So the power of our self-talk, our beliefs, I believe all behavior is belief driven. And so I love that you start this conversation with mindset,
Mm.
because self-talk, positive self-talk for me is more than an affirmation. It's an ongoing inner dialogue that influences how you perceive and respond to the world around you. And your mind is always eavesdropping on your self-talk. And so, being aware of it will help you is the first stage to making positive change.
Wow. Okay, so now I have 300 questions, no longer 200.
Uh,
Thank you for that. Um, so very curious. You talk about, I'll start where you ended. You talk about self-talk, and you talked earlier about the habits. So it's important to engage in this self-talk continuously. I mean, we do anyway, but what you're saying, let's take control of this self-talk as opposed to be, passive passengers will become the active pilots.
yes.
Do you have a practice that you engage in self-talk regularly? What does it look like if you do have that practice?
So the average person has about 60,000 thoughts a day. The challenge is 95% of those thoughts are the same thoughts we had yesterday and the day before that. And so how are we going to create this more limitless life if we're running the same program, over and over again? I think, I'm human. I struggle with self-doubt, with limiting beliefs. And so how do you overcome them? Um, I mean, a number of things. I would start with understanding the root cause. Like when I went and I revisited that time when I was 9 years old and teacher called me, broken in front of everybody. That awareness, I could recognize that self-doubt often stems from past experiences, from, fear of failure or societal expectations. And by
Mhm.
identifying these roots, you could then start to challenge them. And so what do? You could acknowledge them. You don't resist because what you resist tends to persist, but you could pay attention to when self-doubt arises and observe your thoughts and try to do it without judgment. That's why I think meditation is such a powerful practice.
Mm.
It's not that I think there's a misnomer when it comes to meditation. People feel that they have to clear their mind, and that's not my approach. For me, your mind has thoughts like your heart beats, and you can no longer stop the thoughts than you can stop your heart from beating, because that's just what it does. I feel like the goal though with a meditation practice is you're there in whatever form, and your thought goes to work or the dry cleaning or whatever, and you bring it back to a mantra or you bring it back to a breath. You're exercising your focus, and you realize that it's not that you have thoughts, but those thoughts are kind of like clouds that kind of pass by. And I
Mm.
think having the curiosity, I think that for happiness, you need two things. You need the curiosity to know yourself, right? That's why you go to therapy or you journal or you meditate or you do whatever practice to get to know yourself, who you are, what you stand for, your identity, your beliefs, your values. And then once you have the curiosity to know yourself, I think the other part of that formula for happiness is having the courage to be yourself. So many people do the introspection, they get to know who they are, what they stand for, what they believe, but it takes courage to be that person, right? In a world, I spent a lot of time in senior centers, nursing homes. I sadly lost my grandmother. So my parents immigrated to the United States. We live in the back of a laundromat that my mom worked at. So they were very busy working. My superhero growing up was my grandmother, and she took care of me. When I was 5, she started showing early signs of dementia. She would call
Mm.
me by my father's name. She would say something she just said 30 seconds ago. And for anyone who's has a family member or knows somebody personally, and it's quite an experience. At 7, when I was 7, she passed of Alzheimer's, and we donated all the proceeds to our book Limitless to Alzheimer's research for women.
Mm.
Women are twice as likely to experience Alzheimer's than men, yet most of the research is done on men. And so, in memory of my grandmother, we do that. But I would, going back to this, it's just having the curiosity to know yourself and then having the courage to be yourself. Because when I'm at these senior centers, I love learning from the wisdom. Uh, I feel like the life we live are the lessons we teach, and there's so much amazing wisdom that's there, and insights and experience. And also, I also hear a lot of regret, and they usually come in the form of something like this woman told me that she didn't pursue a relationship, someone she was madly connected to because of what other people would think about that relationship, or another gentleman was telling me that, recently that he pursued a certain career path because his parents expected it of him. And I just want to remind everybody that it's not a positive thing to think about, but if you're doing this thought experiment, when we're taking our final breaths, none of other people's opinions or their expectations are going to matter. What's going to matter is how we laughed, how we learned, how we loved, how we lived. And I feel like sometimes we limit our happiness or the expression of who we are because we're scared of what other people will think. And if you fuel your life, on the opinions of others, both positive and negative, I feel like we're going to run out of gas. So a starting point for your mindset is really understanding the root cause. You could pay and acknowledge them. You could pay attention to when self-doubt arises and observe your thoughts without that judgment. And that judgment, without the judgment, the opposite is curiosity. I think curiosity is a wonderful antidote to judgment. You know, part of self-care is not just meditating and eating the best brain foods. It's part of it is looking in the mirror and falling in love with the person that's looking back. You know, the person that's been through so much but is still standing. So, you know, there's a whole process of challenging and reframing these limiting beliefs. You know, you can question and create doubt in yourself for disempowering beliefs like, is this factual or is it a lie? In the book, we talk about different lies of learning, and it's an acronym, LIE. It's a limited idea entertained. It's an idea that we're just giving energy to. And so you could create doubt yourself, like what evidence do I have to support this? And you can reframe that narrative. You could replace over time those limiting beliefs with something that's more positive or even just more realistic, you know, changing something like I'm not good enough to I'm learning and I'm growing every day. You know, I think a third thing to do is to practice self-compassion, which we talked about, being kind to yourself. A lot of people are really quick to judge themselves or be hard on themselves, even when they don't follow through on something. And studies done in self-compassion show that if you're hard on yourself for not doing something like working out or something you told yourself you would do, that you feel like you're going to more likely follow through, but it's the exact opposite. When you're kind to yourself and you say like, hey, I'm only human, you know, today was kind of a difficult day, then you're more likely to follow through. So being kind to yourself, forgiving yourself, letting go of perfectionism and embracing the idea that imperfection is part of being human. Self-compassion builds more resilience and helps you recover from failures, you know, more quickly.
Yeah.
And the last thing I would say is celebrate those small wins. You know, as much energy as you put to criticizing yourself, I like to break down larger goals into smaller, more manageable steps. I call them S3, small, simple steps. And each step you complete builds confidence and reduces self-doubt. And celebrating it, right? Acknowledge and celebrate your achievements, no matter how small. I think this practice encourages, you know, because it creates positive reinforcement. And whatever you reinforce, you get more of yourself and for others. And then surround yourself with other people that are supportive, right? And we all need people to encourage us, to challenge us, to cheerlead, you know, for us. And if you haven't found that person, my recommendation would be that person. Be that person for someone else, especially be that person for, you know, for you. So, you know, my life, I've been doing this. 51 years old. I've been doing it for 33 years, and nobody. It takes a village, right? You know, who you spend time with is who you become. So find positive influences. You could seek mentors or coaches. Um, yes, so much, and just be patient with ourselves. Change takes time. You know, overcoming self-doubt, or sadness or whatever you want to change in your current situation. You know, changing that inner narrative is not an overnight process. But consistency is key. Like any habit, building, empowering inner dialogue and beliefs require practice and consistency. But I really do believe that life is hard for one of two reasons. And I don't know if you please put it in the chat if this resonates with you. Life is hard for one of two reasons. Either we're leaving our comfort zone, right? We're going into, you know, we're exploring, we're trying something new, or life is difficult because we're staying in our comfort zone. Life can be very difficult also as well. And while the comfort zone is maybe a nice place to visit, I don't think a lot grows there, you know, including our spirit and our soul. So
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, one of the reasons why getting of our comfort zone helps us grow is because very often we get out of comfort zone when we experience inflection points in our life. So our growth, our development is not linear. There are certain points that have an impact for good or ill. Obviously, for you, an inflection point was when you got injured as as a kid. Now, from that inflection point, clearly you experienced tremendous growth. I think back to watching you on stage and showing everyone how much you remember, and Initially people, smile when they hear you, um, when they hear you say those names or whatever it is that you're memorizing. And within like 2 minutes, it's not smiles, it's gasps. People are astonished. So you had an inflection point and you grew as a result. You went to a place, and again, you didn't come from a place of, okay, I have average memory and I really improved it. You came from a place of lack. Something was really missing. And that takes me to one of the central points that we talk about in our programs. So, the saying, things happen for the best. I've never connected to it. Not as a child, I don't connect to it today. What I do connect to is that while things don't necessarily happen for the best, we can choose to make the best of things that happen.
Yeah.
So, I don't think you can say, your or anyone else's brain injury, happened for the best. Yeah, maybe in hindsight sometimes, but there are certainly many things in the world that did not happen for the best. And yet it's an inflection point and you have a choice. And the way I see, a lot of your work is how do you use that inflection point or those inflection points where you can either go up or down? How do you increase the likelihood that you'll go up?
So there's a quote in my book Limitless from a French philosopher that says, life, and I have this on my wall. I would encourage everyone just to write it down and we could decode it. It says, life is the letter C between B and D. Life is C between B and D. So B stands for birth, D stands for death, life C, choice, right? You said that word choice, that our lives are the sum total of all the choices we've made up to this point. And like, what are we going to eat? Who are we going to spend time with? Where are we going to live? What are we going to do for a career? And all these different things, right? And I would say that these difficult times, they could distract you. These difficult times, they could diminish you, or these difficult times, they could develop you. But we always decide. And there's a lot of power in that because I feel like it is a reminder to everybody that we have agency, that we're not a thermometer, we're more like a thermostat. A thermometer on the wall, its only function is it reacts to the environment. And sometimes human beings we react. We react to the
Mhm.
weather, we react to how people treat us, we react to the economy, and we react to politics, right? But it's my observation that the happiest individuals and most fulfilled, they identify a little bit more with the thermostat. Like a thermostat doesn't react to the environment. It gauges, it knows the temperature. So you can know what's going on in the world and in your world and at the office. But it has another set of functionality where it sets a temperature. And then what happens to the environment? The environment reacts to it, right? And as human beings, I feel like as a reminder, we could set a temperature and it could come in the form of a dream or a goal or a vision of our lives, a standard for our lives. And then the environment reacts to us. And I feel like it's this important note. I mean, a few years ago, I got to introduce, I used the word superhero a lot because I couldn't read. And I taught myself how to read by reading comic books late at night. Something about the illustrations, the art brought the words to life. And then two individuals in my world wanted to meet each other. And so I invite them both to dinner. And it's Richard Branson and Stan Lee. Not Stanley, but Stan Lee, right? The creator of all these amazing superheroes. And when we're in the car, I asked them this question. I said, Stan, and I was a little nervous. I've been wondering this for years. I said, you created all the amazing superheroes. Who's your favorite? And he
Mm.
says, Jim, it's Iron Man. And then he says, Jim, who's your favorite superhero? And he had a Spider-Man tie. I posted this on Instagram if you saw it, if we're connected there. So I said, Spider-Man. And without a pause in his iconic Stanley voice, he goes, with great power comes great responsibility. And truth be told, maybe because I had that head injury, when I read or hear something, sometimes I reverse it, right? A form of dyslexia. And I heard something different. I was like, Stan, you're right. With great power comes great responsibility. And the opposite is also true. With great responsibility comes great power. when we take a responsibility for something, we have great power to make it better. And it's just a note, whether it's this story with Stan Lee or the thermostat, just a reminder about personal agency, and then that we have more opportunity to make change and affect change. That if you're in a difficult situation that's making you unhappy, you could always make two choices. You could always change your procedure, change your behavior, right? You're in a spirited debate with a spouse or someone at work. You could change your procedure, how you're talking to them, what you're saying, or you could change your perspective, internal. And sometimes success
Mm.
is more of an internal game, and change the meaning that you have towards it. But I bring this up because this is in terms of making positive change in your life. I feel like if I could put something on a billboard for the world to see, it's just a reminder that we are 100% responsible for our life. That's not to
Wow.
say when we complain and we make excuses, they're not true. It could be very true, but then still nothing changes, right? And we put all this energy and focus and time into that. And I mean, as a coach, I can't help but say this because sometimes people know what to do, but they don't do what they know. I hope everybody goes through all your programs. They enjoy it because I don't know a subject that would be more important, right? And it's not taught in school. I always thought it was interesting. I teach people how to learn. School teaches you what to learn, math, history, science, Spanish. But there's zero classes on how to learn those things, how to focus, how to concentrate, how to critically think, how to remember things. And
Mm.
I think that's a very important thing, just alongside with happiness. But it's not something that we're taught, and I hope people everyone go through it. But maybe they learn something, but they're not applying it because common sense is not always common practice, and it might be our mindset that holds us back from taking those steps. And so I would just say that, I believe there's a version of all of you that's patiently waiting. And the goal is we show up every single day until we're introduced to that person.
I'm thinking, as I mentioned earlier, one of our main objectives in the Happiness Studies Academy was to create a field of study around around happiness, and towards that end, we created, a master's in happiness studies, in the future a PhD. I can easily see the creation of a master's degree or a PhD, which is all based on how to learn as
Hmm.
opposed to what to learn. So it's sort of like a meta academic degree, which which will matter so much whether you're studying, philosophy or math or anything in between.
And I feel like learning part of, happiness for me is growth. I think just model nature, right? Everything in nature has to do two things. It has to grow. It's green and it grows, or it's brown and it rots. But also everything in nature also has to give. It has to give back to the ecosystem. And if it doesn't, it's eliminated. I have this term that I use in the book called grow givers. We grow so we have more to give, as opposed to go getters, where we're just trying to get, like back in the 80s. But I feel
Right.
like, but then some people just go give, and they become martyrs, and they don't, people
Mm.
take advantage of them, and you can't give from an empty cup. So I feel like we grow so we have more to give to others. I prepared this like in my mind, I use acronyms as a shortcut since we have a limited amount of time. But for me, happiness is a combination of like, for me personally, I can only speak for me. It's a combination of nine things, and I just use the acronym happiness. H is health.
Convenient.
Yes, so H is health. I feel like it's I've had a couple of life-threatening challenges, and a healthy person has 1,000 dreams, but a sick person has one dream,
Mm.
just to get healthy. So
So,
prioritizing your brain and your physical health through nutrition, exercise, sleep, everything is important. The A in happiness is, I think it's nice to have, and again, this is what works for me, is more of an abundant mindset, cultivating gratitude and shifting your focus on what you have rather than what you lack. And a great exercise for that is, we did this for Thanksgiving. We're doing this. We always do a Thanksgiving episode. We're approaching 100 million downloads, and our Thanksgiving episode is centered around the science of gratitude.
mm.
And if you want to feel wealthy, here's a thought experiment you could try this week. write down all the things you have in your life that money can't buy, and just like think about the things, and I bet you that list is longer than you think. And then the other experiment I do for gratitude, to have more of abundance in my soul, is this thought experiment is like, what if the only things I had in my life tomorrow were the things I expressed gratitude for today?
Hmm.
So like you wake up, the only things in your life you have are the things you express gratitude the day before.
Wow.
And that makes me happy. So growing and giving. So that the A is abundance mindset. The P, the first P in happiness is purpose. Aligning your actions with your core values to find meaning in what you do. And I don't think necessarily it's preordained. My inspiration was my desperation. My struggle became my strength. And I feel a more obligation to do what I do. So I think adversity in some ways can be an advantage. We hear a lot about post-traumatic stress. And I know you do a lot of work on this and speak on this post-traumatic growth, like coming on the other side of something, difficulty. Like how many of you in the chat here have gone through difficult times that you wouldn't wish upon anybody, but somehow you wouldn't change it for yourself? You found something came out, there was a gift, there was a treasure. Maybe you found a purpose or a mission or a strength or a trait or some kind of quality on something. And so, I feel like tapping into more of your purpose. And then finally, just the finish, because I'm kind of a little obsessed about like the completion. The second P is progress. As I mentioned, I feel like we're happy when we are continuously growing. Like, I don't think everybody here would be really happy if 10 years from now you were exactly the same, right?
Hmm.
And as human beings, we need to be able to progress. And the I in happiness for me is a form of inner resilience, right? Building a sense of physical, mental resilience to adopt and adapt to challenges and then bounce back even stronger. The N in happiness is nurturing relationships. All the research that's been done at different places, talk about fostering meaningful connections and engaging, with your community, whatever that happens to be. So it's not just your neurological networks for your happiness, it's your social networks. And then the E in happiness is engagement, meaning I feel like with today's digital world, we're not as engaged or with people, staying present or engaging in activities that bring you more joy and more flow in your life. And the last two S's of happiness, self-compassion. We talked about
Hmm.
that, practicing kindness and forgiveness towards yourself not only reduces stress, but I feel like it could make for a happier world. And then the last S, I was thinking about what to make it. I made it sustainability, meaning
Hmm.
if you're persistent, you could achieve it. But if you're consistent, you get to keep it. And creating
Hmm.
habits and routines that support your long-term happiness. And I feel like it's different for everybody, and your long-term mental well-being. So, those are just some ideas I was thinking, while we were waiting to kind of go live.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Carl Rogers, the psychologist, said that what is most personal is most general. And this is your personal take on happiness, and I can certainly connect to each one
Mm.
of these elements. Wow. Okay. So I have to get to the questions, to the hands that are beginning to emerge. One final last thing, very, very briefly.
Mhm.
Let's get specific and practical.
Sure.
So, of course, you're a big advocate for brain health and mental resilience. So, what are some simple practices that people can integrate into their daily lives to protect and strengthen their mental well-being?
Okay, so here's another acronym. And again, I do this for those who aren't taking notes. Meds RX, and I'll make it very practical. And this is you want to take your pharmaceuticals, and I don't mean for actual pharmaceuticals. The M stands for meditation. This is something that I must do.
Mm,
It's not a nice to have, it's a must have. And I don't do it to become enlightened. I do it as a practice. for my focus and to manage my stress. So every afternoon I take 10 to 20 minutes max. And some people say, I don't have 20 minutes, then that person is so busy, they probably need to do it for an hour. But our brains aren't meant to go at full speed. It's nice to take a little pit stop, a brain break, if you will. The E stands for exercise. And I want to remind people that as your body moves, your brain grooves. As your body moves, your brain grooves. When we exercise, we create something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factors, which is like fertilizer for neuroplasticity and making new connections. And when you exercise, you also create dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, these neurotransmitters that are very important for cognitive health and also could change your mood also as well. So that's exercise. And I don't just mean going to the gym 3 times a week. I mean, moving throughout the day. They say sitting is the new smoking. We're sitting behind screens. And I think it's very important to take little breaks. Even after this, I'm going to, take, walk my 2 dogs, and that'll be my kind of my happy place. The D in Meds RX, it stands for diet. I want to remind everyone what you eat matters, especially for your gray matter. Whole area of science I talk about in Limitless called neuronutrition. And I talk about some of my favorite brain foods. But some people, if they have a chemical imbalance, and always talk to your health, care practitioner. This is not meant to diagnose or treat anything, but being conscious, and going back to life is the C, and life is C between B and D. Those choices, what we eat and what we put in our body, make a difference. And there's certain foods like processed foods, high sugar foods, that could really affect our mental well-being. Over time, it creates inflammation. You have these glucose spikes, and it's something we cover a lot in our podcast. The S in Meds RX is sleep. Everyone knows this, but how's your happiness when you get a bad night's sleep? How's your, and I'm talking about learning. How's your focus? How's your memory? How's your mood? How's your ability to solve problems? How's your mental energy? And so, sleep is so important, especially for your brain. When you sleep, you consolidate short to long-term memory. So if you have long-term memory issues, check your sleep. Also, when you sleep, the sewage system in your brain kicks in, and you clean out the beta amyloid plaque that could lead to brain aging challenges. It's also where you dream. This is interesting. Do you know that a lot of things created in the world and culture and art, science, literature came from people's dreams? Like Mary Shelley came up with Frankenstein in her dream. Paul McCartney came up with the song Yesterday in his dream. A chemist created the periodic table in his dream. Elias Howe created the sewing machine in his dream. Like there's all these examples, but it requires you getting a good night's sleep. And we do a whole chapter on how to optimize your sleep. And then RX, Meds RX, the R is relationships, which we already covered. Who you spend time with is who you become. And so, choose wisely. And sometimes it's our friends or family members that really try to pull us down. And I feel like they could be sincere, but they could be sincerely wrong also as well. And so, just you could choose your peers and the people that have that influence with you as well. And then the X is all the extras that you could do, and so some people use cold plunges to have the dopamine flood for a few hours and make them feel more happiness. We do a lot of research and put it in there, the human studies talking about certain substances called nootropics that have been shown to improve focus, memory, energy, and mood also as well. So those are kind of all the extras, the red light therapy and therapy, everything else. But yeah, these are all things that are practical things people could schedule. And I would recommend, I think the most important productivity, performance, self-care tool we all have is our calendar. But if we don't schedule it, we're probably not going to do it. And I just want to remind you, you schedule your therapy appointments, your parent-teacher meetings, investor meetings, whatever. But are we scheduling our implementation and our care? Like knowledge by itself, and this is a hard truth, knowledge is not power. It has potential to be power. But how many of you here have books on your shelf you haven't read yet? And it becomes shelf help, not self-help. That's why we teach accelerated reading and memory and comprehension, not skimming. But, so many people know what to do, but they're not doing what they know. And so I want to remind everybody, I think for every hour you spend learning something, like that, especially in this amazing series, you should schedule an equal hour to apply it, right? To be fair, because somebody reading a book or going through a program and not applying it, is no better off than someone who's illiterate and couldn't even read it to begin with. And so, and with the questions I ask is like, how can I use this? When will I use this? And I calendar it so it doesn't, so I make sure it gets done.
And the nice thing about a calendar today, with technology, is that we have the recurring function. So
Yeah.
you can, repeat it. We talk about, Jim, this full disclosure here, I knew that I loved your stuff when I saw that there are acronyms there, because I love acronyms.
Thank you.
And one of our acronyms that we use, the 3 R's of change, where we need reminders, and you talked about those reminders, and the reminder can be a picture on my wall or a bracelet on my wrist or a quote that is next to me, a reminder. Then repetition, that recurrence is critical. And after you have the reminders and the repetition, that's when you get to the ritual, to the
No,
habit.
I love that.
Um, so
Yeah, I love alliteration. It's definitely a tool you can use to
yeah, to
remember. And I
remember.
also want to just for the people watching live, I love this chat and how everyone's supporting each other, this community. People are having questions and people are very quick to support answers, because I feel like, my book's called Limitless, and question I always get is like, how do you become limitless in a limited world? And I feel like we do it together.
Amazing. Okay, so we're up to 400 questions that I have, but we need to open it up. And so I will call on people. Please make your question very short, because we do want to
Yeah,
get.
and I'll be quick on the answers. It's just I just really want to pour into your community because I love your work and I love you so much, and I want people to feel like, this session alone was just so useful.
It is already. Thank you. So Maria.
Hi, Tal. Hi, Jim. Thank you very much for so interesting your speech. And first of all, I have to say you many, many, many thanks. I'm from Ukraine, and I began to study quick reading exactly before our war. And now I can understand that it helped me a lot. And for that, I want to say you many, many thanks. And now I'm very, very happy that we have already your book in Ukrainian already, and we use it. And I know that many people use this book, and it's really helped us. You answered already on many, many questions I had, but one question, it's really very important for me. Unfortunately, now I live in Ukraine, and right now I'm in Kiev, and unfortunately we have almost all nights are awful because of attack by bombs. So I know already how to be with myself according to some advices from Happiness Study Academy or from you. But now I'm very interested and worried about my daughter, because the children are in the same situation too. Maybe you have give us some advice, because, for example, I'm like a coach. Sometimes go to school to my daughter, and we are discussing with our teachers how to help our children after such awful nights, for example. Maybe you give us some advice, maybe we give our children some advice. And again, many, many thanks for everything you do, and for you too.
Yeah, thank you. My prayers and thoughts for you and anyone going through, any kind of challenges. Wow, that's a big question. I want to be able to be supportive here. Um, I don't have an easy answer for this, but I'm very passionate about supporting children. This week, I went to something called Pencils of Promise. There's we built schools everywhere from Ghana, Guatemala, Kenya, for children who don't have access. There's 244 million children who don't have access to schools. So helping our youth is something I'm very passionate about. a couple of things. We control the controllables, right? We can only control what we can control. And my goal, for me is I can't always control what's going on, and I can't control what's going on, for example, in our country. Um, whatever they do about healthcare, whatever they do about economics or whatever, but I could control my own personal economics, and I focus on controlling my family's personal healthcare. With children, and this is something that, we have with our family, I think, I think what people need, and we talk about superheroes, and we are the superheroes we've been waiting for. And I think a superhero offers hope and they offer help, right? Those two things, that's what a superhero, because just having superpowers doesn't make you a superhero. And everybody has different superpowers. They have traits or strengths, gifts, talents that, is something that's knowledge, skills, abilities that could, is wonderful, but using that to help people have more hope and giving them true help. I mentioned this phrase, the life we live are the lessons we teach. I feel like a lot of the things we're talking about here, especially happiness, because happiness is like these practices that you learn through these sessions, with Tal and everybody else, can help reduce their stress, give them hope, give them more sense of well-being. And I wouldn't start by overloading, with everything, because, in Limitless, there's a lot of information in there. And, in these webinars, there's so much information. I feel like doing it with children is very important, if possible, and then starting step by step. I'll give you an example. We had a biological dentist, a world-renowned one out of Germany, on our podcast recently, talking about oral health and good for brain health. And we're talking about what to do beyond brushing, like oil pulling, tongue scraping and everything. And we're talking about flossing. And I'll get back to the answer here. It's just like, and they were like, we're having a conversation, like, how do you get your kids to floss if they don't floss? And that's where I talk about S3, small, simple steps. Because sometimes we're not motivated to do something, children included, because the key for motivation is three keys. You need P times E times S3. And this also goes to motivating other people in your work or motivating yourself to work out. P stands for purpose. So things have to go from your head to your heart to your hand. And knowing this, if you have a vision for your family here, but we're not acting with our hands, check in with the second H, which is our heart, which symbolizes emotions. The E, though, somebody could have purpose, but they need E as energy. That's why I talk about, the good brain foods and the supplements that help with energy, exercise, sleep, stress management, positive peer group, cleaning your environment of neurotoxins to help hit energy. But then you also need the S3, which is really key, and I hope this is useful. S3 stands for small, simple steps. So instead of trying to get someone to floss, maybe that's too big. Flossing one tooth is a starting point. Like if you've seen photos of me online with Oprah or Elon or whoever, people always ask how we connected. We bonded over books, right? Tal has decades of experience. He puts it into a book, and you sit down and read that book in a few days. You can download decades into days. And I think that's, incredibly useful and important. Plus, reading is the best exercise for your mind. Reading is to your mind what exercise is to your body. But I mentioned this because these books feed your mind with hope and help. And so some of my favorite books, this is why I'm doing what I do, what I'm doing, is because I was exposed to books. And I would recommend this, for all children to be able to read more, stand guard to their mind,
125 to start the week, only
be able
3 events to go. Those are mistakes.
And someone needs to mute, sorry. And stand guard your mind, and then put together a list of curriculum to be able to, outside of school, to feed our minds, just to have a more positive, optimistic outlook, to prioritize self-care, to remind people that, that remember that time when, we didn't think we could survive. Well, what we did, and we'll be able to do it again. Kind of an attitude. So I know it's much more involved than that, and everyone's situation is so different and demanding. But I would start with small, simple steps. to be able to get us where we want to do, and feeding our mind for the, with the things that could, good things in, good things out, and it just boosts our spirit. Oh, Tom, sorry.
The mindset matters so much, and therefore hope and help matters so much. Thank you for that, Jim. And thank you, Maria. So, Nev.
Hi. Oh my gosh. I cannot believe what an amazing guest we have. Tal, thank you so much. Jim, thank you for sharing your insights with us. I really, really appreciate it. Yeah, I actually read your book, and my question to you is actually, I want to ask you for advice how to improve my memory. I don't know if it's my limiting belief that I have terrible memory. I like learning, but when it comes to really memorizing things, which I am actually in the process of for a TED Talk, which is in my dream bucket for years,
Oh,
just
wow.
because I don't trust my memory. So how can I not only improve my memory, but also stay calm and focus in such high intense environment?
Great question. Okay, so you improve your memory one of two ways. And I'll make this super quick because I want to be able to get through a lot of these questions. There's hardware and software, right? So we teach people the software, the step-by-step procedures to learn languages, to remember names and faces, to give a speech without notes, remember client information, product information, you name it. That's the kind of the software, but you also have to take care of obviously the hardware, this 3-pound organ between our ears called our brain. And the brain, it's the most amazing technology in the world, but doesn't come with an owner's manual. And that's why I wrote Limitless. And we don't upgrade it as much as we upgrade other technology. When, you upgrade, you get a new computer or a new phone, or you upgrade those apps. But when's the last time we took time to upgrade that? This between our ears. And so you do all the things we talked about meds RX and other things to improve that organ. I will give you an example. I teach a lot of TED speakers, the top TED speakers, to memorize their 18-minute talks. I do this for Hollywood actors to memorize their lines and on camera. And I feel like it's the biggest challenge is public speaking. It's one of the biggest fears worldwide. For me, it was my biggest challenge. My two biggest challenges, because I never knew the answer. So I never want to be called on in school. So my two biggest challenges, get this, growing up from age 5 to age 18 was learning and public speaking. And life has a sense of humor, right? Because what do? All I do is public speak on this thing called learning all the time. So my inspiration really was my desperation. But that being said, with challenge comes change. And once I started to improve my memory and I knew what to say, my fear of public speaking just dissipated, because in psychology, there's this competence confidence loop, right? That the more competent you get at something, the more confident you are. And because you're more confident, you're going to do that activity more. Going back to Tal's, talking about repetition, the importance of, repetition, they say, is the mother of skill. And then you're going to get better, and that increases your confidence and so on. So it's a positive feedback loop. Because I think the biggest fear people have when public speaking is they're going to forget what they need to say. So I'll give you a really quick exercise. There's a 2,500-year-old memory technique. The largest chapter in Limitless is the chapter on memory improvement, and I wrote it in Greece. I found out there's a goddess of memory, and her children are the 9 muses: science, literature, and art. And isn't it interesting that science, literature, and art, the mother is memory? And back then they would have orators, and they would memorize their speeches before there were teleprompters and all that stuff. So it's a method called Memory Palace, and I'll do it really, really fast with everybody. And instead of memorizing a speech, we'll keep it very simple, but it could be a speech. But we're going to do those brain foods that I talked about. And so, Jasmine, that's adorable. All right, so everybody do this. You don't have to stand up. Just as you're sitting, it's the method I call PIE, P-I-E. You place, imagine, entwine. And so we're going to take 10 places on our body. And this is going to help with other things also as well. So everybody touch the place and say it out loud. So everyone, this is the active part of learning. So top of your head. So say top and then go down, nose. You need the verbal memory. So 2 is nose. 3 is mouth. Mouth. 4 are your ears. 5 is your throat. So we're just halfway there. We're going to do 10. Let's do it again. Top, nose, mouth, ears, throat. And here's my belief when it comes to mindset around memory. There's no such thing as a good or bad memory. There's a trained memory and an untrained memory. All right, so we're training our memory. 6 is shoulders. Let's everyone say out loud, shoulders. 7 is your collar. 8 are your fingers. 9 is your belly. And 10 is your bottom. Okay, so 10 places. You can do it at the top, nose, mouth, ears, throat, shoulders, collar, fingers, belly, bottom. So that's the P and pie place. We have 10 places. So it's like filing system, mental filing system. The I is imagine. We tend to remember things that we imagine, that we could see in our mind's eye, right? You remember the face, but you forgot the name. There's a proverb that says, what I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. What I do, I understand. I heard the name, I forgot it. I saw the face, I remember it. What I do, going back to practice, you understand. So we're going to take the image of my 10 favorite brain foods. Now, everyone's bio individuals. So you could take a food sensitivity, allergy tests, a microbiome test. But in general, here are some of the 10 best brain foods. Avocados. So the E is entwine. I is imagine the avocados. The E is entwine. And what are you entwining? The place and the image. So I want everyone, pretend you're 8 years old and you have avocados on top of your head. And even if you can't see it or imagine it, imagine you can imagine it. All right. You're making guacamole as a scalp conditioner. And if it makes you smile, you're more likely to remember it, because when you add emotion to something, it's part of your middle brain, your amygdala and your hippocampus. Memory and emotion are tied. So imagine avocados, top of your head. All right, we're gonna do the rest fast. Second place is what? Everyone knows. Blueberries. All right, so blueberries. I want you to imagine blueberries. I call them brain berries. Avocados, the monounsaturated fats, good for your brain. Blueberries, high in antioxidants, very neuroprotective. Blueberries, smell them in your mouth, feel them in your nose. All right, blueberries in your nose. All right. 3 is your what? Mouth. Broccoli. So I want you to imagine the sulforaphane in broccoli is very good for cognitive health. I want you to imagine a big stalk of broccoli, not a small one, but it's embarrassing. You ever get caught like you had broccoli in your teeth all day, broccoli in your teeth? Taste it. All right. Even if you can't see it. 4 is what? Your ears. 4th brain food, olive oil. So imagine you're cleaning your ears with olive. Don't just hear me say it. See it, feel it. One of the keys to accelerated learning is to use all your senses. All right. Imagination, Einstein said, is more powerful than knowledge. So you're cleaning your ears with olive oil, or you have olive earrings, something to remind you of olive oil. 5, what's the 5th place on your body? Your throat. Eggs. If your diet allows, the choline in eggs, the precursor to acetylcholine, which is really good for cognitive health. Imagine a hard-boiled egg instead of an Adam's apple in your throat. All right. What does that feel like? This is weird, right? All right, we're halfway there. 6 are your shoulders, green leafy vegetables. So imagine shoulder pads, kale, spinach. It's ludicrous and silly, but that's what makes it memorable. And by the way, these pictures disappear once you know what these 10 foods are. They're just a means to an end to overcome what I call the 6-second syndrome. Somebody tells you their name, you have 6 seconds to do something, otherwise it's lost. So shoulder pads, kale and spinach. 7 is what? Your collar, wild salmon. So I want you to imagine a necklace made out of wild salmon sushi. Sardines also, flax would be, you're getting your omega-3s, your DHAs, right? Which is very important for your brain. So imagine a necklace made out of salmon sushi. Imagine the salmon sushi is 10 days old. All right, that makes it more memorable. All right, good. 8, we're almost done. Are your what? your fingers, eighth brain food, turmeric. The active ingredient, curcumin, helps to lower systemic inflammation. But just imagine that golden powder all over your fingers and your nail beds. You can't get it off. Really annoying. Great. We're almost done. 9 is your what? Your belly. The 9th brain food, walnuts. They're high in vitamin E. That's neuroprotective. Imagine eating walnuts out of your belly button. Like, tell me if you went to the mall or the park and you saw somebody eating walnuts out of their belly button, you wouldn't have to study that for an hour. You see it once, you'll know it 10 years from now, right? Because we're using these principles. Walnuts, feel it, taste it. And then 10 is what? What's the 10th place in your body? Your bottom? Dark chocolate. I don't even want to know. Don't put in the chat what you're picturing or anything. Dark chocolate on your bottom. All right, now Tal and I, we're gonna have a limitless brain party to celebrate, and I just imagine one of us call you up in the car and you can't write it down. It's like, hey, can you go to the store and buy a couple things while you're out? You're like, no problem. You take it and you just put these 10 things on your body, right? And so now you're walking around the aisles and I want to see, like, you don't need your grocery list. You have it inside your mind on top of your head. What's the first thing you need to get? You can even put it in the chat also if you like. Avocados, good. Say it out loud. And then your nose. Blueberries, very good. And your mouth. Broccoli, good. Your ears reminds you of what?
Olive oil.
Olive oil, good. And your throat, you have what?
Egg.
Eggs, very good. That's 5. They're halfway there. 6, shoulders.
Green leafy vegetables.
Green leafy vegetables, very good. Your collar.
Salmon, sushi.
Salmon, sardines, everything that's good for your. Very good. 8 are your fingers. What's on your fingers?
Turmeric.
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 And your belly button.
Walnuts.
Walnuts. And finally, your bottom.
Chocolate.
Chocolate. And so you could do it forwards and backwards. And the reason I do this exercise, because it only takes 5 minutes, takes more time to explain it than it does to do it, is that you could probably do it backwards, right? And it's just proof that you could do something that you never thought you could do. And if you could do this, changing your mindset, what else is possible, right? After just learning something after a few minutes. And you could use this to memorize a speech. If you had 10 points to a speech to cover, you could take each one, turn it into a picture and put it, on your 10 points you could reuse your body, or you could use your home. I can imagine myself standing in the doorway of my kitchen. I just go clockwise. Say the first place is the microwave. The second place is the stovetop. Third place is the refrigerator. Fourth place is the dishwasher. Fifth place is a sink. Then I can walk into another room adjoining and then do 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just go clockwise. And all of a sudden, you could remember it just walking through your home. And even if somebody asks you a question during your speech, you can answer it and come back. And a lot of people lost their spot. But here, you know exactly where your spot is because it's anchored to something familiar. So you could create a home list. You could make a list in your car, your body, your office, a mall, any place that you're familiar with. So this is a 2,500-year-old. So Limitless is, we do a lot of neuroscience and practical, pragmatic things based on latest science, but also ancient wisdom. What did people do hundreds or even thousands of years ago before, this technology was available?
Wow. Powerful stuff, Jim, and really focusing on software and hardware is key. Thank you for that. I'm going to teach my kids these 10 brain foods today.
Yeah, I guarantee you, like, even post it online if you remember them and tag, Tal and myself so we get to see how many you remember.
Amazing. Thank you. Victoria.
This was fabulous. Thank you so much. It's really, I can't wait to get started on the regimen. I'm trying to remember things. I have a million questions too, like Tal, but my main question, I think the most important to me right now is in terms of the, changing the mindset and the happiness, to go back to the because I had questions about memory too, but there's so much emphasis in therapy on processing trauma and processing the afflictive experiences of the past. And which I understand, but my pitfall, and I know it's not just for me, but for many people, is to get stuck there. And then so much time is dedicated to the processing of the negative that there isn't really, we don't take the same amount of time proportionately to cultivate the positive. And the reason I signed up for this today was that I see in my own work with therapy how it's inevitable. Every time I have a session, instead of emerging feeling like I had a catharsis, I emerge feeling like I have another laundry load of negative things to process. And by nature, I think I'm a happy person, but in this work that I'm doing, I'm processing really major trauma, which I won't go into a bit. But so I just wanted to some of your wisdom about either the proportions of how we're working on these things, or if simply, I mean, I'm tempted in a way to just turn away and say, okay, that was then, this is now, I want to be happy. I want to be, and I have gratitude practices and all kinds of things, but they're not, they don't have the bulk to counteract the trauma, which is much more heavy. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. I think Tal is better suited to answer this question than I am. You know, just especially the subject matter, but with trauma, from a learning perspective, it's really tough. Your nervous system is locked, and it's really prioritizing safety, right? Above everything else, not necessarily growth and change. And so I am a fan of various modalities for myself, because I had, you know, my issues just like everybody else, challenges. And some of my go-tos have been useful for me personally has been self-hypnosis or some kind of trained hypnotherapist. I am a fan of EFT. It's been very supportive of me, tapping on certain meridian points also as well. But really, yeah, I would talk to, I'm very I want to be very responsible in terms of the information that I share. But for me, changing my mindset it's around my morning journaling. It's my gratitude rituals. It's the you know, the morning journaling, practicing gratitude and mindset helps me to be open, focused, more ready for the challenges, and has changed my personal path. But I would say the most profound mind shifts I've experienced is, you know, understanding that success and happiness are built, you know, not necessarily born, and you just you go through not just through external achievements, but through this inner growth and gratitude. You know, when you anchor yourself in, for me, daily reflection and appreciation, it becomes easier to weather life's inevitable life's ups and downs, maintain more of a state of contentment. But yeah, when it comes to, you know, the therapy, probably want to talk to somebody that's, you know, really that's their thing. And I'm sure Tal could talk about this for hours.
Yeah, just to add very briefly, what more and more therapists are recognizing and implementing is that introducing, whether it's journaling, whether it's gratitude, whether it's physical exercise, incorporating these as part of therapy, make therapy much more likely to succeed. So incorporating healthy habits is key for not just recovering, but growing from traumas. And Victoria, I really urge you, if you haven't already, look at the work on PTG, on post-traumatic growth, mostly by Tedeschi and Calhoun and others. Many very practical and important insights there.
EMDR, I'm seeing Gail's comment, has been extremely useful for me also as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Jasmine.
Hi, Jim. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. I raised my hand because I deeply appreciate your teachings and the inspiration you have brought into my life. Your approach to learning and grow has had a profound impact on me, and I'm so grateful for the insight and motivation you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, Jasmine, you're doing the work, so I thank you. You know, I always appreciate, you know, people who show up for themselves and others. So thank you. How can I be useful to you now?
Thank you. I I told myself I should not be and, I have a million questions to ask, but I did not know what I should ask. But you were talking about dream, and I have a lot of dream as well. Some of it become reality, and then other time I have really bad dream. But I want to learn more because you bring it up. That was my first question, and the second question is for my baby. So what are some foundation activities or practice you would recommend for supporting a baby's cognitive development in their early years? So that's on my two more question.
How old?
She is 1 year old.
Oh, beautiful. I have a she's turning 22 months now, and then we haven't posted this on social media, but we have another one coming in 3 weeks. So it just, yeah, so I'm feeling you. The dreams, that's a whole rabbit hole of interpretation, memory dreams, and just meanings, semiotics and symbolism, and probably kind of a long conversation. For children, you know, I started my family very late. I'm 51, so we had my child when I was 50. When my dad was my age, I was 27 years old, you know, so different place and cycle, but it's really doubled my mission to leave this generation even better off, in my own personal way. You know, I thought I would take our son. We have a daughter coming up, but I thought I would take our son and do all of the protocols, and I have a lot of them, right? I could share a few of them. What I realized though, and I don't know if I'm the only one here, but I'm learning so much more than I ever in the teaching him. You know, learning about being present, learning even just this state of contentment and curiosity and playfulness. And even when he was ready to walk or do other things, he didn't fall down and just not try anymore. He did it 300 more times. But as adults, sometimes we don't do that. We take a salsa class, we embarrass ourselves, like, I'm never going to do that again. We try once. And so, you know, my approach has been just the power, using it as an exercise in presence. And of course, you know, their brains grow through novelty and proper nutrition. So it's something obviously to take into play. Of course, we read to him, you know, every single day, so he's exposed to greater vocabulary. We have a little keyboard, so we're doing some things with music and spatial awareness, and we're very physical. I think what's so important is I feel like I'm trying to limit screen time and spend more. And this are all this is I think is good for any of us age or stage, but spending more time in nature, I think there's so many benefits for the brain. That your external world is a reflection of your internal world, and the things that I do, a lot of things I could do with my son as he grows older. And I think that's very important also as well, in form of integration, you know, like eating certain foods or going to bed at a certain time or going through gratitude practice. Like even in the morning, the first thing I do, and this is free, like my morning routine is 12 minutes for when I wake up, because of him, at 4:30 in the morning. You know, as soon as the sun comes up, we go outside and we get direct sunlight. That's one of the best things you could do for your spirit, and just to reset your sleep, your circadian rhythm. Your eyes are the only part of your brain that's outside your skull. So 10 minutes of light, even if it's hazy or foggy, you'll still get the benefits, not through a window, because it could filter out certain spectrums of light. Number two, well, this is where it came from. Like I read when I was doing research that the ancient civilization, the Greeks, Babylonians, they thought that everything was made of 4 elements: air, fire, water, and earth. So my idea here is in 12 minutes, I want to get exposed to those 4 elements. So what I do, I go outside, I get sun, which is fire. I walk barefoot, you know, on the ground or the sand or the grass, and there's an exchange of electrons, reduced stress. There's benefits, but I don't go into it. But I feel grounded. That's earth. I drink water, And I think it's important because, just being dehydrated, we talked about this on our podcast, could severely compromise your cognitive health and your cognitive performance. Just staying hydrated could boost your reaction time, your thinking speed upwards of 30%. When you sleep, you could lose up to a pound of water just through respiration and perspiration. So I drink water, and I usually structured like with electrolytes or some little salt or lemon, and then finally, so we have fire, earth, water, and then air. I do a series of breathing exercises to clean out the mental cobwebs, in my things. And I do this now with my son. And it's a great way to jumpstart. Everybody has their morning routines. Mine is really to get my brain right, So all that I try to integrate as much with our family as possible, because learning doesn't have to be solo. It's also very, very social.
Wow. And as you say, Jim, these are such great tips, whether we're, it's a 22-month-old or a year-old
Appreciate
baby,
you,
or for
Jasmine.
ourselves as adults.
Yeah.
So we have time for, unfortunately, just one more
Mhm.
quick question. I'm going to call on Felicidad.
Yeah. Thank you, Tal. Thank you so much. I will be very quick. Tal knows what I'm going to say. And Jim, I want to thank you very much, because I have been diagnosed 2 tumors on the brain yesterday, and I am losing my speech, and I cannot write anymore. So my only question is, if they fix it, I will recover. I will be practicing again. That's it.
Yeah. Thank you, and same prayers for you for sure. The diagnosis is, well, I'll do this is my personal perspective. So again, I don't want this everyone, is smart enough, intelligent enough to make their own decisions. Diagnosis is one thing, right? But prognosis is something totally different. And having interviewed so many individuals about spontaneous healing and all kinds of uh, seeing some remarkable things over my career, I would say that, yeah, when I learned this when I was 18 years old, I mean, it's super fast. I couldn't help but help other people, right? Because I struggled my whole life up to that point, 18, with these things, and there were simple things I could have done to make it easier for me. And I couldn't help. I started tutoring, and one of my very first students, she was a college freshman, and she ended up reading 30 books in 30 days, not skimming or scanning, but really read them. And I wanted to find out not how, I wanted to find out why. And I found out that her mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer, was given 2 months to live, just 60 days to live. And the books she was reading were books to save her mom's life.
Wow.
And I wish her a lot of prayers, everything. And just, I end up getting a call from this young lady 6 months later, and she's crying profusely. And when she stops, I find out they're tears of joy that her mother not only survived, but is really getting better. Doctors don't know how or why. They were calling it a miracle. But her mother attributed 100% to the great advice she got from her daughter, who got it from all these books. And in that moment, I realized that if knowledge is power, then learning is our superpower. And the superpower we all have. And I also learned my dharma, my mission in life, which is helping people to be better learners, to be able to do the things that are important to them. And so, for me, the recovery is like you could bounce back, and you can also bounce forward. And I hold certain beliefs true. It's not just like what's true; it's what's useful. And when I decide, my personal belief system, and there's so many things that we could do, little things that add up to big things. But I always say that, as I was talking about hope and help, never lose hope. Our beliefs are stronger than I think most people realize, because our minds are always eavesdropping on our self-talk. And if people truly understood how powerful their minds are, I honestly don't think people would say or think something they didn't necessarily want to be true. And so, maintaining that, being in close proximity with community of people that are supportive, like look at all this love that you have right now in the chat. I feel like, that you don't have to go through it alone, that there are people, that you inspire people with your grit, and your grace, and do all the other stuff, like, your diet, sleep, meditate, read, do all the, the things that, and get good advice from, and second opinions from other individuals that give you resources. But I feel like you're getting so much hugs and so much love. So I just want to make sure that you take a moment to really feel it. Allow yourself to feel it, and those molecules of emotion. I mean, we have a lot of people rooting for you. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, dear Felicidad, and thank you, Jim.
So much to everyone, because I am afraid I will not be able to answer everyone. So thank you so much. Oh, sorry, I can't speak very well. Thank you so much.
You're doing wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah. I want to thank you for having me. I have a quick gift for people, if that's okay.
Please, thank you.
After 30 years of doing this, I realized that it's not how smart you are, it's how are you smart. And so I'm hoping with the hands raised that we didn't get to in terms of strategies to read faster, improve your focus, improve your memory. Just like there's personalized medicine based on an assessment, right? Based on a DNA test or something like that. Personalized nutrition based on a microbiome or nutrient profile test. We created a 4-minute assessment, and I wanted to gift all of you. It's a personalized learning and performance based on your dominant brain type. You can go to mybrainanimal.com. You can take it for free, and for this community, we made it accessible, mybrainanimal.com. Multiple choice, but what you get after it based on your brain type, whether you're a cheetah, you're an owl, a dolphin, or an elephant, you have a dominant brain type, and then you could determine, we give you suggestions on how you could read better, remember more, focus, but also how you could hire or train your team better, to be able to parent better based on brain types. Because again, it's not how smart you are, how smart your kids are, it's how are they smart. And sometimes when you're learning something, your dominant brain type is different than the teacher's dominant brain type. And then you miss each other. It's like two ships in the night. There's no connection. And, I watched this movie, The Matrix, and there's a part where Neo goes to see the Oracle, the all-knowing Oracle in her kitchen. And I don't think a lot of people saw above the door, there's a quote that I think a lot of people miss. It's know thyself. And I feel like it's, incredibly beneficial. And that's why I appreciate everyone in this, that tuned in today, and I hope this isn't just, this is definitely not the end, that this is, the beginning of something amazing, that you are the greatest project you will ever get to work on. So you have to take time and make time and create magic, right? And sometimes growth is hard, change is scary, but nothing is as hard and scary as being stuck somewhere you don't belong, right? And so, it's what's simple is not always easy. But I just want to remind us collectively, collectively, I feel like a lot of people are going through a lot. And, how do we become limitless in a limited world? We do it together. And it's a real honor to be with all of you. And, I can't wait for more.
Wow. Wow, Jim, this was amazing. And you know what I'm coming out with more than anything else, that is hope.
Yeah.
Because so many of your recommendations and the way you integrate so much material makes it accessible. Accessible for us when we're going through hardships, accessible for us going through challenges, and accessible for us if we just want to improve and better our lives or the lives of those we care about. And I'm also very much looking forward to continuing to learn from you, all the things that you're doing, all the wisdom that you're sharing with us. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah,
And,
I want to thank you and your team. A lot of people don't realize how much goes on behind the scenes to create this experience. So I appreciate you. You are you're an inspiring force of nature. You're an unstoppable force for good. So it's a real honor, and I look forward to connecting with everyone again real soon.
Thank you, Jim. And thank you, everyone, for being
Thank you
here.
very
Take
much.
good care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.